he just didn't sound believable to me. He did not sound believable. So the 10th witness on the stand was Ian Whiffen, who is a digital forensic examiner for Cellbrite, and the stuff he was going over, it just did not add up. Like, even at one point he was like, oh, when you set the time on something, when you come back to it like 2 weeks later, somehow the time is off. What? How does time go just magically start getting off in 2 weeks? It didn't make sense. It did not add up to me. It did not connect no dots. I don't understand it. It just sounded like he was making up stuff. Like, if that was known, it would be known by now. Like, I mean, how you hold on to that we've never heard that before. That when you set something on a certain time, when you come back like 2 weeks later, somehow that time is off. How does time just drift and become off? Make that make sense. It's not making sense. So he came in to go over the cell phone data, and he started by saying he was brought into the case because they felt like something was not right in the timing with this 227 search. Why is that the way you started, though? Not I was brought in to make sure that the information that was being pulled was accurate, or I was brought in to pull accurate information. You say the reason you got involved is because they stated something didn't seem right. That's very telling right there to me. Why is that the verbiage that they're using? Why is it that something's not right? Just because the search happened at 2:27 and they're saying, no, it didn't happen at that time. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning. Why is that the conversation we're having with somebody to verify information? It should have been simply, can you verify this information was accurate? And then we'll go from there. Not, we need you to come in and look at this information because this doesn't look right. Very telling. That whole conversation is very telling of how he was brought into looking into this data. Now, of course, we already know that they're trying to tell us and make us believe that when Jen opened that tab at 2:27, it was triggering that's when she did that search at 6, that she says was at 6 o'clock in the morning. But there's just nobody's believing that. Nobody is actually believing that it only documented the time the tab was open versus the actual search. She was searching at 2 o'clock in the morning. There's no way that that doesn't even make sense. Because that would mean every single time that a tab is opened, it's staying documenting to that original time. And I'm somebody that keep tabs open for weeks at a time without turning the phone off. Yes, I know I'm supposed to turn it off and reset it every once in a while, but I don't. But that means that when somebody come look at my data, it's showing that tab was open for weeks. Even if you do it, do it once a week, where you are resetting your phone or you're opening and closing tabs, it will show every single thing that you did. It does not make logical sense that that's when she opened the tab, sir. Now, I did mention originally in the opening from Brennan that he was talking about the temperature of the battery, and I did not. Please forgive me. I did not know that it had like a temperature setting on it. I just thought it would be like, oh, the phone is too hot, or oh, the phone is too cold. But it actually has like a temperature, like a number setting. And I did not know that. So that was news to me. So he did go over that. But it was kind of weird that at one point of the temperature on John O'Keefe's phone, it changed like 6 degrees in like a split second, and he has no explanation as to why that temperature changed. It's not like the temperature outside changed that quickly or anything like that. It just shows randomly that it changed by 6 degrees. So yeah, and his phone did not cut off the entire time, so it never got too hot or it never got too cold. And I just think that it should have gotten too cold at some point if it was out there for a long period of time, because they are saying, this storm is coming in, this blizzard is coming. It was super cold. Like, it should have went off because it was too cold out there, and it did not. So that was very telling. Now, at one point, he was trying to state that which is why this information just does not come across as believable. At one point it was, oh, it looks like the phone was by the flagpole and it never moved from that area. Not it might have went in the house or it went here and went. It was by the flagpole. You can tell that accurately that they standing by the flagpole and not at the doorstep, not at the backyard. You're able to specifically tell us that the phone was by the flagpole and it didn't move. And then later on in the conversation, when Alessi is doing cross, he's like, oh, well, I couldn't tell what this was at, where this was at. Huh? How at one point you're saying it was by the flagpole, it never moved. I'm positive it was by the flagpole, and later on in the conversation, I'm not sure exactly where this was at. The data should show that. So if you're telling us that the data doesn't show later on where it is, why did we going to believe that it did earlier in the conversation, and you're stating that it was by the flagpole, sir? It didn't make sense. That didn't make sense. Like, he was contradicting himself on the stand, and once you done that, I don't believe nothing you said. I had a hard time in the first place, but when you say something like that on the stand, I don't know, sir. And he states that when it looks like the phone, because there's been conversations that the phone, that John O'Keefe's phone, there's like a health data that it tracks, and it looks like when he is moving, he is going upstairs and downstairs. And he states that means he was only going up a hill. I'm positive that the way your body moves in a vehicle going up the hill is different than what your body feels like or does going up some stairs or down some stairs. That is two different interactions, because in a vehicle that he was not driving, mind you, because Karen was driving, he is just sitting. And you want me to believe that the movement of him sitting in the vehicle going up a hill is the same as him physically walking up some stairs and down some stairs. And this is the health data that is tracking in his iPhone. That's what you want me to believe. There's absolutely no way that you think I'm going to believe that him going up a hill is exerting the same amount of energy as walking up or downstairs. So yeah, they didn't finish with him. They were on cross, but y'all know how Auntie Bev is, child. When she was to stop, she just stopped. She didn't say, can you wrap it up? None of that. She just said, stop. All right, we're going to let y'all go for the rest of the day, and we'll see y'all tomorrow. So just mid cross-examination, because the hearing for ARCA is this afternoon, and so that is, of course, the, kind of the main attraction for the day. So we're going to see what she says about ARCA. I just know they better be on them stands giving their information when the defense calls them, okay? Because if it's not allowed, Auntie Bev, some of us might get on the flight, okay? All right. So the voir dire hearing for ARCA has completed, and this was such a weird hearing. I have absolutely no idea why Brennan has this tension in his throat. It was very weird. He was pretty much yelling at the first witness, and it was just like, calm down, calm down. It's not as serious as you are making it, so calm down. So we won't know the decision of, the ARCA hearing until Bev announces it, because of course she never does within the actual hearing. So we won't know until then what her decision is. But the first witness on the stand was Dr. Wolf, and he spent the most amount of time on the stand. The second witness only came for like 5 to 10 minutes, and that's because they spent so much time on Dr. Wolf. I don't know if it was just because she was like, y'all need to hurry up because I'm not bringing them back again, or if the main issue was with Dr. Wolf. I'm absolutely not sure. But it was very intense on Brennan's part with Dr. Wolf. He was like, well, when did you become an advocate for the defense? And he's like, I'm not. I never did. Y'all never reached out to me. So they're the only people that I've really spoken to besides the Justice Department, who actually hired us. But I communicate with them, so that's just the client. Like, he was like, what do you mean advocate? That was really weird to me, because he was like, well, you wrote all these notes out here for them on the report. And he was like, well, I did that because that's what I do as part of my job. Like with any other client, anything that I have experienced where I've had to take the stand, I want to make sure that those things are brought out so that the jury understands it. Because some people actually understand making sure that you speak in layman's terms versus your in-house jargon. He understood this, so he wanted to make sure that the key points that he needed the jury to understand were brought out, so he wrote little side notes. But he said, I do that for every client. That's my normal behavior. And if we ask some of his other clients, I'm sure they're going to say the same thing, because some people absolutely understand. You have to make sure it's in layman terms, or people just be like, yeah, pass. So he did ask about the text messages. He said that he did not keep those messages from, that long ago. He normally doesn't keep messages that long between clients. He said it had been over a year before he even ended up, eventually deleting them. He used to have T-Mobile. He switched to Verizon. He did try to see if he can get, a hold of them, but they did not have them. He had switched, carriers. That happens. He's not normally in a position where he has to keep messages that long. Like those messages were 2 years old, sir. He ain't got that old stuff. Of course, the questions have been asked numerous times, like what did y'all go over? What was the context of the conversations that y'all have had? He went over that 1,001 times. Brendan asked him the same question a million different ways, to him answering that the same exact way. All we talked about was our credentials, way for us to get there and back, things of that sort, when do we need to be there. That was it. That was the extent of the conversation, because that's all they were allowed to discuss because of the contract with the Justice Department. That's all they did. That's all he discussed with them. That's all he mentions when he comes and talks about this, which he has done before, but he came and talked about it again, since y'all act like I didn't hear him the last time. He just repeated the same information. Now on cross, Alessi did the cross examination, and it was brought out that he has been getting, harassment emails, comments online. They've even brought in pictures of his family saying negative things about them. So he's been getting, very weird, communication online, and that had not been brought out before. So he did bring that out on cross, and that's definitely something to know. Like, no matter what side people are on, it seems that if somebody's on the opposite side, they are getting some type of backlash and unwanted communication from people that they don't want to talk to. Stop it. So that was very good to know, because, of course, if you have been keeping up with this case, you know that Turtle Boy is going through all of his mess, because they're saying that some of the Commonwealth witnesses have been receiving, things from him, and he's going through all of that. So it is not one-sided. Unfortunately, it does seem to be on both sides that people are getting unwanted communication and, comments and all of that jazz from people who do not agree with them. And then Alessi also asked him, because there was notification or indication that they used Signal, which was an app to communicate. And he said, well, did you know why he was asking you to use that app? And he said, no, I didn't, I didn't ask. I don't know why he did it. It wasn't, an issue to use it. But he was like, did you know he could have possibly asked you to use that? Because everybody was getting a subpoena at the time, all of her family and the attorneys were getting subpoenas. So he's like, it's possible that he may have asked you that so that, you were not caught up in the, the wrath of the subpoenas that were going around. And he said, no, I did not know that. It was not a problem when he asked me to. I didn't ask. I just said no problem and, complied. So I definitely thought that was interesting to know that, people don't just do stuff randomly. I'm a very big believer in that. It's always for a reason, and trying to get that on the record was definitely important. And then the second person on the stand was Dr. Andrew Ranchler, and he was, again, on the stand very quickly, and they asked him some of the same questions, but they went through them really quickly. He did not harp on those questions. The defense did not ask him any questions at all. He clarified the information, but with him, when he came to do the voir dire hearing the first time and they had to leave, he was the last witness on the stand, and so the defense did have to make a stop at a event, and so he ate at the event and then stood in the corner. He's like, well, did you speak to this person? Did you speak to that person? He was like, well, yeah, they were there. I was not rude to them, but I stood in the corner after I ate and waited until I could get a ride to the airport. But he was not there socializing. He was there because he was waiting on his transportation to the airport, and that was part of his transportation. They had to make a stop. He made that stop, he ate, and then he stood in the corner, and then he got on his plane and left. Like normal people do. You don't turn down free food. He didn't turn down free food and that free ride to the airport. He did what he had to do. So then Auntie Bev asked him, could he get the report in before the date that they provided them, which was May 7th. And he said, I will try. He said, but that's really like the time frame that we need. That's like a week away, ma'am. Come on. But he said he would try. So I don't know if that's an indication of she's going to go ahead and allow them to testify, if she's going to give restrictions on their testimony. Who knows? But that was that. I'm glad it's over. It was quite interesting. But that is a wrap on day 5 in the Karen retrial.